Sarah, we're good.
Fantastic. Mr. Chairman, you may call this meeting to order.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Monty, you have to start.
I think, Monty, you got the first comment.
Yes. Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the June meeting of the LCTCS Board of Supervisors Audit Committee. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I'll ask Sarah Kleinpeter to go over a few points, given that we are holding an in-person meeting of the committee and live streaming. Sarah?
Hi, everyone. As a reminder, our meeting is being live streamed online through YouTube. Please be mindful of that. You may view the board items via the links posted on the LCTCS website. Members, please state your name when making a motion. Public comments may be made during today's meeting via open conference call at 877-810-9415. Access code 6499147#. The information is in the notice of meetings posted on the LCTCS website, lctcs.edu, and outside the room where we are meeting. Any public comments received will be read during the meeting by the board secretary or a designee. All public comments must include an agenda item number, a name, and a brief statement. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per comment. The meeting will need to adjourn by 9:50 a.m. in order to accommodate the timely start of the 10 a.m. board meeting. Mr. Chairman, I turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, with all those good comments, we call this meeting to order. And Stan, if you would, I'd like you to ask you to lead us in the pledge.
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Sarah, would you mind calling the roll and making sure we've got a quorum, please?
I'd be happy to do that. Supervisor Spahn.
Here. Yes, ma'am.
Supervisor Mount is here. Supervisor Bradford is here. Supervisor Bradford is absent. Supervisor Carter is here. Supervisor Roman Hardy is absent. Supervisor Salah is here. And Supervisor Price is here. Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum of the board present.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. With that, hopefully folks have had a chance to review the last meeting, and I would ask for a motion to approve if there's not any edits or comments.
The motion by Mr. Jackson, second by Mr. Salah.
Is there any objection? Objection.
That doesn't sound like it.
Not like a minor objection. We'll overlook right now. All right, here that motion passes. Now, Michael, it's up to you, sir. I'd appreciate it if you'd take us through the year-end report.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate everyone being here in person and online. As you know, we didn't have our regularly scheduled meeting was for April, and we postponed it for a lot of different reasons to today. So we'll have this meeting today, and since it's June, we'll go over the year-end report about what's gone on in the internal audit for fiscal year 2021. First of all, I want to say I'm very disappointed that Jeff Fleming cannot be here today, but his wife gave birth to a baby on Saturday, and he chose that over you guys.
I don't blame him.
So, congratulations to Jeff Fleming and his wife Rachel, a new little baby Kate. So we're happy. He would normally take us through some of all this, so actually I'm not disappointed with that at all. I do have extra copies. I don't know, I think everybody got this distributed to them, but if you don't have a copy of the year-end report, I have a few extra copies here if they're needed. by the, internal audit at LCTCS operates under its charter, and we operate according to the international standards for the professional practice of internal audit, and that requires us to make a reporting to our audit committee. There are a few things that we actually have to affirm to the audit committee, and one of those is in the third paragraph. We affirm that LCTCS-IA enjoys an organizational independence which allows it to fulfill its responsibilities with objectivity. Basically, that means we're not doing management activity. We're able to be the eyes independent of management, and we are very grateful for the support that we get from this board and from the management of the system office and all the chancellors at the colleges. They are always very helpful and supportive of our activities. You approved an audit plan with 9 projects identified, and that audit plan is on the second page, and it gives kind of the status of all of those that were completed, those that are in progress, those that will probably carry over, and one that was actually deferred. One thing I'd like to say, we say internal audit activity for the fiscal year summarize 3 of the 9 projects on the approved plan were completed or in progress. Now, you have to note that any item on here, for example, in item 4, electronic signatures, that's one line item on the plan, but that's actually 4 projects because we do that at multiple colleges. All of these projects, we have to touch several colleges when we do that. So each one of these line items will have 4 reports issued on them. So 3 of the projects are actually completed. We had 7 reports issued in those 3 projects. 1 project is in progress with completion anticipated before the end of the calendar year. 1 project requested by college management during the year is in progress, and we'll go over the details of all of these in a moment. 1 project requested by college management during the year is in progress and should be completed by the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of June. We researched and responded to numerous special requests regarding ethics regulations, accounting procedures, internal controls, allegations of fraud. We get calls, as almost every staff member here does, and we take time to try to regulate or give the information we need. We've performed ethics liaison activities. You know from the reminders I send all of y'all to get your financial disclosure forms in. That's one of the things we do. We do the same type of monitoring for all the staff to get their annual requirements in. That's only one part. I know HR does a whole lot more, so give them the credit too. The projects we did complete, we had one that we carried over from last year, the property management audit. We had begun it at a few colleges and completed it at those colleges, and we finished it at this year for South Louisiana Community College and Central Louisiana Technical Community College. Those reports were issued in December of 2020. Basically, that was a review of the certified audit that the college makes to LPAA. And we went in there, we did a random selection, larger, like we looked at 200 different assets that they had reported, made sure they were tagged appropriately, they were where they were supposed to be, they were being reported at the proper value and whatnot. We had very minor issues at both of those colleges. Things weren't where the record hadn't been updated, things weren't where they said it was supposed to be. We finally found most of them. There were some that, still, ended up not being where they were supposed to be, but most of them were. We were able to find them and certify that. The biggest problem to that is when we say something's not where it's supposed to be, we'll help you, let's find it. The legislative auditor is going to come in and say, it's not where it's supposed to be, that's a finding. So we want to try to get it to where that issue is resolved. So that was the purpose of these reports. The next project we did, which I thought was very beneficial, was a matter of electronic signatures. Several of our colleges already use electronic signatures, but when COVID shut all the colleges down, activity was having to take place at home and remote. You couldn't walk down the hall and get somebody to sign a piece of paper. We had to resort quickly to electronic signatures. The Commissioner of Administration issued a memo basically saying what would be allowed for electronic signatures, and most of the colleges simply cut and paste that into their policy. I had a problem with that. I've done a lot of research into electronic signatures over the years, and if you look at the law that allows electronic signature, there was one phrase in the law that was missing from the policies that were established based on the Commissioner of Administration's memo, and that was the intent to sign. So one of the things that the Commissioner's memo said that the colleges implemented was you could take a scanned image of a signature, put it on a document, and that's an electronic signature. Yes and no. The intent to sign is not automatically there. In fact, I made the point because I drafted a memo giving me and Jeff Fleming huge raises, and Monty's signature was on it, which I presented to all the folks that, and so.
Congratulations.
The point was, Monty had no intent, but we need to talk later, but he had no intent to sign that memo. So that was fraudulent. What has to happen is, there has to be some electronic, typically cryptography behind it, some encryption. There's a attribute called non-repudiation. When you see a signature that's been signed by somebody, if it's a proper electronic signature, the person whose signature is there cannot say, I never signed that. If your signature is on it, it's because you used a piece of software that was assigned to you, you signed on, you created this signature. Now, if somebody else got your login ID and used it to sign your name on it, you're still responsible because that was assigned to you. And Mr. Price made the comment, the report that I sent to him had my scanned signature on it. But I didn't think of it at the time. I thought, here I am issuing a report on electronic signatures, and I've got a scanned signature of my name. The difference is it came from my email. The intent to sign was in that document because it had my signature, it came from me, and I don't repudiate it. So we did that at 4 colleges. Those reports were issued for Bossier Parish Community College, South Louisiana Community College, LCT System Office, and Louisiana Delta Community College. And even though we didn't find any instance of improper use of electronic signature. So I was very happy. So there were no reported findings in any of these reports. But we had an exit comment for all of them saying they need to update their policy to indicate that a scanned signature with evidence of intent to sign is the allowable policy.
Mike, on that point, actually I was having a discussion with Shannon Sedbear, the CFO at our board office, about our disaster recovery plan for the office and how we're having to update it. And I said, we're not having to update it, we're having to revamp it completely, because since COVID-19, not only our office, but most of our colleges are moving to electronic signatures and workflow, so that they definitely never use scanned signatures for anything in terms of the accounting office, but they develop a workflow where it has to go through a process, an electronic process of someone logging into their computer, going through Adobe Pro or some other software to electronically sign, which puts a date stamp on when it occurred at that computer, and it gets routed then to the next level of approvals. And everything is done pretty much electronically, so that we no longer have pieces of paper floating around where people are wondering, where's my requisition for whatever. They can tell you at any point in time, that requisition currently is sitting in the purchasing officer's office, and I will contact them to move it along. If they don't move it along, they actually get a notification automatically saying, you have these pending documents to sign. So it's more of a streamlined process, but back to Mike's point, scanned signatures are never used, at least in accounting. It's always through some third-party software, Adobe or otherwise, where there's a date stamp on that signature for that person before it gets routed to the next thing. And what that has done is caused us to be more efficient. And also, in the event that we ever have a catastrophic event, we basically just go back to remote operations as we did during COVID-19. And it's a seamless process.
And I would hope as we all come back, we would still use electronic
We are.
signatures, not get out of this walking down the hall and hunting
And that's
somebody down.
that's my point. Even though we are back in the office, the systems and measures that we used during COVID are still in place because they just are that much efficient.
Yeah.
Now, we only did this project at 4 colleges, but my guess is the others are in the same boat. So we will be presenting this to all the CFOs at the CFO meeting, I think, tomorrow. So we'll be making that.
Correct.
Hopefully, everybody will be updating their policies. The other 2 projects, we always do purchase and travel card reviews. We're not required to do them anymore, although the state travel office thinks they still can make us do it. But their policy says we have to include purchase and travel card reviews in our risk assessment every year. We do. It is low risk. But when we have some downtime, we still try to do one. And we did do one this year for Central Louisiana, in fact. And we issued that report on January 29th. We also do follow-ups on all prior year reports if we issued reports in fiscal year 19-20. The problem with doing follow-up, the LLA always does follow-up, but they do the same project every year. They do the audit this year, they issue findings, they go back next year and do the same project for the new data, but so they can follow up on last year. We very rarely do repeat projects. So it's hard. The way to do the follow-up, we'd have to go back and do another project at the college. So we followed up on the ones we could, and then the next time we go to that college to do the similar project, we can follow up on whether they made that. But we did do follow-up at 2 different colleges. We did at Delgado. They did correct documentation errors that we identified when we did their last P-card, travel card review. And at Louisiana Delta, they updated procedures related to the LPA, asset tracking software that we had identified when we did their property review. We have projects in progress, and since this was printed, this report can actually be updated. The project at Baton Rouge Community College that report has been issued with no findings. What this is, we've selected a large number of transactions, and we're just doing typical vendor process reviews. We're looking at invoices, the same invoice ID has been paid on a number of occasions. So is that right? That doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It's just we've got to look at it. So, sometimes it's an open invoice and they just pay it monthly. So it's just something we need to look at. We've looked at the same amount that's paid every month or every year. And we're not looking at $17. We're looking at the larger amounts. We're looking at large payments made to new vendors. A vendor in the last 6 months with a large payment. Is that wrong? No, but it's something you want to look at. We did matches on bank accounts to see if there were vendors using the same bank account as an employee, to see if there's, if our employees doing work with their own college. We found a few, but they weren't doing work with their agency. Maybe they were teaching at one college, but they were doing vendor work for another college. No problem with that, but it's just something you need to look at. We also looked at year-to-year changes. We looked at somebody, they had an amount in 2019 that was 300 times larger in 2020. And we did that. It had to be 300 times larger, and it had to be at least $50,000 larger for us to look at it. We found several. And is that wrong? No, but it needs to be looked at. Why was it necessary to have such a large increase year to year on this particular vendor? I'm happy to say we have not found issues. At the one college we did, we're in the process of doing Sewella. That's ready for review, and that should be issued within the next week. We're getting started at Northwest and Fletcher, and we should have those finished by the dates indicated there. Projects that we didn't get to start this year that we hope to carry over to the next fiscal year. One is remote access security. With COVID, we had a lot of people who normally work at their desk, suddenly working from home. What procedures were taken to make sure that they were able to log in securely? How was data protected on the devices that they took home? Did they use personal devices or LCTCS issued devices? If we issued additional equipment to them, what are the plans for making sure that equipment comes back? And how do we track that? So that's a project we will be doing at 4 colleges. We can't possibly do that at every college. I think RPCC is one of those. I think Delgado is one of those. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Are most of the employees back?
I'm sorry?
Are most employees back?
I believe most employees are back. I think under certain circumstances, people still might be working remotely, but I think they probably, either childcare or something like that. But I think for the most part, most are back. If I'm wrong, chancellors can tell me.
You're right.
The other thing we're going to be looking at, these are really typical internal audit projects. I don't have a lot to say about them. Payroll accounts, you're always looking for things, fictitious employees, are people taking leave correctly, things like that. Contracts, are we getting what we paid for? Are things being delivered on time? Those are the types of things we'll be looking at there. And agency accounting. I added this one last year, and we didn't get to it because I got several phone calls during the years asking me related to how to spend the money in agency accounts and things like that. So I thought, well, maybe we ought to take a look at that. Off-plan work. We actually got a request from the chancellor at Louisiana Delta to come in and do a baseline review on their financial aid. Not that they thought anything was wrong, it was just the chancellor was new at the time and just wanted us to come in and do a baseline review for him. So we started that. I'm going to be going back to Louisiana Delta on the week of the 21st to try to finish that up. Hopefully we can get that finished up either by the end of June or early July.
I think that's good.
Good, thank
For
you.
that chancellor is, to come in.
I agree.
I'm Helen Carter, in case I'm supposed to say my name. I should be the only one open.
That's if you make a motion. The last thing I have is, we had started a project to kind of create a baseline on compliance, all the different areas and all our different colleges, and then we basically got sent home, and it was just hard to get everywhere, and I don't know about y'all, but I never thought I'd be home for a year, over a year. And as time went on, this project kind of lost relevance. And so we've kind of deferred this one. It may be at a later time. We can pick a particular area of compliance to look at. If you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer it. But basically, that one we probably are not going to pay much attention to at this point. And in conclusion, I know y'all can read, but I'm going to read it to you. Internal audit has, like all other areas of the LCTCS and its member colleges, had to transform its activities from the traditional on-site face-to-face projects to a more data-oriented remote access style of project. This change has affected our pace of project completion. Changes are being made to the structure of internal audit to address this issue. These changes will be discussed in further detail when we present our audit plan for fiscal 2021-2022 in August. We hope that LCTCS management and staff will continue to look to internal audit as a trusted business partner as they endeavor to reach the goal of training Louisiana's workforce. It's been our pleasure to serve you this year, and we are grateful for your continued support.
Thank you, Michael.
That's what I've got.
Real signature too.
And with intent to sign.
check mark on that, that's good.
You brought up something, on the revisitation of, colleges, prior year performance issues, and with that, I'd like to ask Chancellor Sawtelle to offer some comments on the audits that had been recently, and previously conducted at your institution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Dr. Sullivan, members of the board, your colleagues. We had our fourth audit in the last 7 years at CLTCC, and it is the product of amazing good practice and best practice. I want to thank Dr. Sullivan and his team. I want to thank Mr. Marine and his team, Mr. Redmond and his team, for helping us along the way. We're very proud to share something I think you already know. In a full scope audit, one of several full scope audits in a row because of our SACS journey, we had no audit findings. So thank you. That applause I share with you because many times I've said that the system office has treated us like we're the only college. Joe, you can give your line.
I say that as far as I'm concerned, you are.
So we're very grateful. There's never been a time we've called that y'all haven't picked up on the first ring, given wonderful encouragement from the board. And I want to thank Mr. Joey Bourne, who's been with us going on 4 years now. He is a veteran of 2 other colleges, but in a storming, forming, and norming type way, he's come in and done an amazing job. And we celebrate his accomplishment. We're very pleased that we had, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Meg.
Welcome. So,
Long time since you've been in.
Dr. May, we gotta warn you, we're being broadcast on YouTube, so just let you know. I was in the middle of thanking everyone for a very good audit season, but remember, we will be audited again very soon. For our next year, will be another full scope audit. We will have successive full scopes until we reach candidacy. But I'm here really just to say thank you not only to the system staff, to our board, to the members of the teams from HR to finance to internal audit, but also my colleagues at the campus level and our legal counsel with Leo Hamilton. This has been something that we've put a lot of effort into, and we're looking forward to next year. So, Mr. Chair, thank you very much, sir.
We want to thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well done.
Sounds like you've done a pretty good job.
Well, behind every successful chancellor is an amazing president.
I know that. Thank him too. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan.
Just, Mr. Chairman, if I may, one thing that we have shared concern about with Central Louisiana Technical Community College is the concern about the finances. And when we say the finances, we were really talking about 2 issues. One was the operational challenges that we had recognized via audit work, but the other was just the sheer balancing of the budget. And I think what you see now in Central Louisiana Technical Community College is an institution that has cleaned up its shop in terms of the operations and is well on its way to improving the fiscal position to be able to give them accreditation. Those 2 pieces, I think, are as big a hurdle to accreditation as any we face. So the work that Chancellor Sawtelle and his team have done has just been phenomenal. So we look forward to seeing the results of that. As you all know, the SACS application is in, and the big question that we're going to face over the next 6 to 12 months with Central is this rising stimulus dollar. And then on the back end of that, as the stimulus dollar subsides, the folks at SACS are going to ask the question, is there lesser commitment from the state of Louisiana as a result? And so we've got work to do to make sure that we can move through that period of stimulus dollars as they cycle down. But the good news is that we're in good stead moving into that period. So thank you again to Chancellor Sawtelle.
Mr. President, thank you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't reiterate, it is a team effort at CLTCC, and I want to thank the colleges that are working with us in terms of transitioning a few campuses. You know, these are not easily done, and they've done an amazing job. Mr. Chair, thank you very much, sir.
Most welcome. I'm really proud of the work that you've done and the work that you guys do to keep this board out of any trouble. So thank you all very much for that. Joe, you have some comments for us today? By the way, we have 25 minutes in which to keep those comments.
I think we'll meet that.
Make them be good too.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But as many of you know, normally the audit season, the legislative audit season, lasts and ends pretty much in December, maybe January at the latest, because they're trying to get their audit reports out for the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the state. which they did, but they also continued their work well into the spring. And we had 5 audit reports that were issued in the months of March, April, and recently as May. Those were Bossier, that also had no findings, Central, that had no findings, and BRCC, SLCC, and Delgado, who did have findings. And it's been an interesting, let me continue with that. During that time frame also, there was a change in leadership at the Legislative Auditor's Office. If you haven't heard already, sometime in April 19th, Michael Wagesback was appointed as the new Legislative Auditor for the Legislative Auditor's Office. He's a former sheriff and a CPA, and so we will see how that dynamic changes, if anything, the office of the auditor. The office always seems to kind of take on the personage of that leader, so to speak. So we'll see again what happens there. When I asked my assistant for some background on the audit reports, and I printed a document out, I was surprised at the volume of it. And it indicated to me really 2 things. One is the number of what I consider minor audit findings and the response to those audit findings. And in that sense, I think what has occurred with all these federal funds coming in, there's been a lot of scrutiny placed on colleges with these funds, and a lot of issues highlighted representing really in the scale of the office of these colleges, minor amounts of funds. Sometimes in some cases, it wasn't things that were illegal or improper, there was just a difference of opinion. For example, when we awarded aid to students, when the pandemic hit, the declaration said that we should make it, colleges and universities should make it as broad and as general and as generous as possible. The declaration was issued on March 13th, and it referenced the period of March. So we awarded aid to some students going back to March 1. Go back forward to October, further guidance was issued from the feds after 6 months more had passed, saying, well, really March 13th should have been the date. So during that 13-day period, the feds didn't say that it was illegal or improper, but they said really March 13th should have been the date. So that was kind of a little ding that we got in that case. In some cases, colleges actually reported to the auditor that they found some issues, minor issues, corrected the issue, and paid back some funds to the feds. It was $40,000 at SLCC for pay that was given to administrators, which was not allowed by the federal guidance. So the college identified it, isolated it, notified the auditors, and paid the feds back those funds. They still got dinged, right? So, and in some cases, that college as well got hit for a previous finding back from fiscal year 19, related to faculty pay raises. If I remember, we had this discussion. There was some concerns or differences of opinion regarding one-time payments to faculty. Are they bonuses or are they not bonuses, and so forth. They reached back to a prior year audit and resurrected it, so to speak. So my point in all that is there definitely is a difference in tone that I think we need to just kind of work with among ourselves and the legislative auditor. However, keeping in mind as some of our colleges are very sensitive to this because of given things that were going on. At Delgado, they were in the midst of a $20 million donation from auctioneers, and that's a lot of money. And so when that is happening, the last thing you want to see are headlines that could be misconstrued or misrepresented by the general public. And so people, obviously when they respond, there's a lot of passion involved and so forth, trying to allay those types of headlines. So again, it's just, I think, a process that we have to work through with the legislative auditor. In the meantime, we went under a performance audit regarding fees, tuition and fees, which basically indicated that our tuition and fees were in line. Actually, we had not increased tuition and fees as the other 3 higher education systems had. So we kind of went through that audit fairly well. But I will say, in the meantime, as late as 2 weeks ago, we got notice from the Performance Audit Division, again, that they will be coming back wanting to look at foundations and the relationship between the board and the oversight of our foundations at our colleges, not only the LCTCS Foundation, but all foundations. And they're not just again, targeting or looking at the LCTCS, they're looking at all of higher education as a larger audit review. So, my point on all that is on one front, we will be dealing, as we always do, with financial audits, and at the same time dealing with a performance audit. And all in the meantime, while audit standards and guidelines change, we are now on another audit, GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board standard that is requiring us to do things with leases. So we're working on that issue, and we're on number 88. And I think back to 15, 16 years ago, we were on GASB 33. So these things are changing, not only annually, sometimes annually you're getting 2 or 3 updates to these changes that occur that we have to incorporate into our financial statements. And back to Jimmy's point, with Shannon Sedberry, my CFO, and her staff, they do such a good job of making things easy, or as easy as possible for the colleges in terms of spreadsheets and databases and things of that nature, that we've almost kind of spoiled the auditors. Because if a college strays ever so slightly from that format, which they have the right to, we do this really as a courtesy to the auditor's office, they kind of start questioning, well, why is so-and-so doing this? And kind of have to explain to them why. But again, we've gotten that good as an agency, as a system, with our audits and our reporting, that expectations are very high from the auditor's office.
Sounds very good.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I want to just add one quick comment. I think the most important thing that Joe just referenced is a change in leadership at the Legislative Audit Office. It is indicative of an expectation by legislators that shop be run differently. And I think, I'll be working with the new leader of that organization to just sit down and wipe the slate clean and start over. We have been frustrated, maybe is the right word, by audit findings that read may have rather than did. But the headline doesn't catch the may have portion of that. And the purpose of the legislative audit shop is not to play gotcha. The purpose of the legislative audit shop is to help us to get better, and we want that. We want to have a strong working relationship, and what I assure this board is we will have a strong working relationship with this LLA going forward, and we'll continue to keep you posted on that front.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question, and preface my remarks by stating that I know no one has anything to hide. As far as the legislative auditor's jurisdiction over these private foundations or public foundations, to what extent or extreme can they go as far as requesting information from the foundation other than the gifts that it makes to the community college system? How far can they go into the private business of the existing foundation?
So it's my understanding that any foundation that has a cooperative endeavor agreement with the college, and thus with the board, Leo, keep me honest here.
No, you're right.
They have full purview to see the annual financial report. And
From the foundation?
From the foundation.
Well, that's an IRS, that's no issue.
And the question will become, if there are irregularities of some type or concerns of some type, I'm sure there will be those who will question their authority. I think at this point, the expectation from legislative leadership is that the legislative auditor has full purview to review those documents. And that's what's been communicated to me. I'm not, haven't read the statutes to take a look at that.
That's accurate.
Okay.
That's accurate.
Awesome.
Once they sign the cooperative endeavor agreement and agree to abide by the,
So that's in the agreement that the foundation that agrees to with the system, right?
yes,
That's in the endeavor agreement.
in the cooperative endeavor agreement, they have essentially agreed
Okay.
to be as
But
open
as far as
you
the
are.
state and federal regs is concerned, it's in that agreement.
Right, they have agreed to comply.
Okay.
So,
Thank
Michael, that might be something to add to the August agenda, just to make sure that we're
Well,
all.
I was just asked out of curiosity because I was involved in establishing one of these foundations, and we was forever and a day answering interrogatories from the feds in order to get the foundation set up.
Right.
It was a hell of an ordeal.
And as of right now, back to the financial, the AFR, the financial reports, they've always been subject to review by the auditor's office. We always provide those as part of the package that we give them.
Thank you.
Joe, I'm just curious, my own edification, we have, and I'm sure you know the answer to this, with all of these federal dollars flowing to our colleges, they're trying to get these dollars out, following federal regulations. Do they then wind up if there's federal regulations and then we have state regulations, does the federal money must flow through the state, must they adhere to the state regulations
Yes.
also? Okay.
Once
There's no hierarchy in regulations, okay?
No, now, obviously, the federal guidance, provides, the general purpose and intent of the use of the funds.
Mhm.
Those will continue, just like any grant that we get from the federal government. But once any fund hits the state accounting system, whether it's a donation from me, somebody on the street, the feds, a government of some sort, they become state funds.
Okay.
And purview to the state policies and procedures related to procurement and bid laws and things of that nature.
Okay.
So I want you to add the complexity of it.
That's what I'm saying, they're trying to juggle all these, yeah.
Right, so that you have different perspectives on Trump administration to Biden administration on how these dollars are administered.
That's my point, yeah.
So thanks to Ramsey, Rebuild America's Middle Class, we've had an opportunity to sit with Chief of Staff to the Undersecretary responsible for this work, and specifically we're able to say to him, give us all of the guidance in one document rather than spread across all of these memos, because we literally at one point we're looking at 20, 25 different memos from the feds. And in some cases you had different guidance, conflicting guidance in different memos. So we asked that they put that into a single source. They did that, and really, to be frank, this administration has done an exceptional job of giving us guidance in the last probably 3 to 4 months. Because I have to tell you, 4 months ago I would have told you this is tough. This is a tough place to be, and it's largely why you see some of the audit findings that you see around those federal dollars.
Okay, yeah.
Well, we kind of started into questions and other business, I guess, by not necessarily intending to, but let's offer for the YouTube crowd or the public or anybody at the table, is there any other business or any questions to come before the board?
The only thing I would add is that we normally meet every other board meeting, but because we postponed the April meeting to June, we will have an audit committee meeting in August. So, which we're normally scheduled to have in August, but don't think just because we had it in June, we'll skip next time.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, this is Sarah. Because Ms. Mount joined us by Zoom, I think that we need to do that initial vote to approve the minutes by roll call to be safe in our audit purposes for this meeting.
Thank
we
you,
go
Derek.
back-
If you would go ahead and do that, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir, before we adjourn. So this is a roll call vote to approve the minutes that we approved earlier. Supervisor Spawn,
Yes.
Supervisor Mount. Thank you, I see it. Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Salah,
Yes.
Chairman Price,
Ma'am.
Supervisor Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. That makes me feel a little bit better.
That's important.
Thank you, Sarah.
All you,
Please make sure you sign the attendance list if you're here and haven't signed yet.
I haven't.
Didn't see that.
Well, there's any number of them, you can just sign them.
All right.
Available to you.
Is there any other business?
I don't even have
Any other
fingers.
comments? Hearing none, this meeting